Thank you everyone for joining us with our meet and greet with Mayor Ron Nirenberg. Today we have as our guest, of course, we all know and love Mayor Ron Nirenberg, who is currently the only Asian American mayor in a top 10 city in the United States. And he has been our mayor since 2017. And of course, some of us may know that he is an Asian American mayor who is Jewish and whose mother's background includes Malaysian, Indian, and Filipino. And I'm not sure if many of you know, but the largest Asian American population in San Antonio or Bexar County right now is actually Filipino, and the second largest Indian American, followed by Chinese American. And of course, I'm sure many of you know that Mayor Ron Nirenberg passed the anti-hate COVID-19 resolution almost a year ago. And so we're gathering here to celebrate about a year of that and to celebrate him as our Asian American mayor. We also have as our guest, Mark Pulido, who has served in government service at the local, state, and federal levels, and has been community organizing for 35 years and served as the past two decades as an elected official in Southern California, including 2 terms serving as mayor. He served as mayor from 2014 to 2015 and 2018 to 2019, only ending due to term limits. We also have as our guest Yatish Jakatimath, who is currently the Board of Trustees Chair for the Indian Association of San Antonio, and he's here to proudly represent the Indian community and also proudly supports Mayor Ron Nirenberg as he serves our San Antonio community. And last but not least, we have as our guest former Ambassador Rodolfo Domapias, who retired in San Antonio. Just a bit on the history of his career. He is one of 5% of people, or actually 5% or 15 out of 300 people who took the Foreign Service exam in Philippines when Philippines was under martial law. And his career went on with his first foreign assignment being to open the Philippine embassy in Beijing, China. And he served as a Foreign Service officer through the times that he became ambassador to Bahrain as well as Mexico City. And of course, I'll let my 2 other Board of Trustees introduce themselves. Roy?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm honored to be in your presence. I'm Roy Kismundo. I am Colombian Filipino mixed, and I'm also identify as non-binary. So I find myself at the intersection of just my identity and how I could use that to better the different communities I'm part of. I am Myra's secretary for the Asian American Democrats South Texas, and I'm looking forward to our conversation tonight.
And I also want to honor the Melissa Ramoso, who recently joined us. She is the mayor pro tem of the city of Artesia. Welcome, Melissa.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And Nicolette, do you want to also introduce yourself?
Just be really quick because I'm like fangirling right now too. I've got all these mayors in front of me and I'm just so excited. Hi everyone, my name is Nicolette Ardiente. I am the treasurer for our Asian American Democrats of South Texas. So I'm really excited to have this interesting dialogue with all of you. I'm also a Bexar County Democratic Precinct Chair. So I'm over here at 3210, I-10 and like Bernie Stage, kind of like that area. So really just excited to be involved this evening with all of you and really just love to hear all of your insights. So thank you again for joining us.
And of course, my name is Myra Domapias, the inaugural board president. We opened Asian American Democrats of South Texas only in October of last year. And I just want to start this great discussion with a listing of the Asian American mayors in Texas. And it might not even be complete yet, but David Chu was the mayor of San Marcos from 2000 to 2002. He is known as the first Asian American mayor in Texas. There's Joe Chow, who was mayor of Addison, Texas from 2005 to 2011, and then from 2017 to 2020, or 2020. Dr. An Min Trong, a mayor of Haltom City, who was sworn in just last year, and Gordon Kwan, who was mayor pro tem of Houston, I believe, in 2002. So a very short list. And so I just want to start off with, and go around the room and ask people to just express what's on their mind with Mayor Ron and the significance of his role being an Asian American mayor, in San Antonio, and who has, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with through the Biden and Harris, Filipino American Biden and Harris campaign meetings that we had last year. What are some of your thoughts? And we could start with Mark.
First, I want to thank Myra for inviting me, and I just want to take this opportunity to say congratulations to the Asian American Democrats of South Texas. What an honor to be a part of this important meet and greet with the Honorable San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg. And I just want to extend my gratitude to you, Mayor Ron, for all of your great leadership in Texas and the whole southwestern part of the United States. You are truly an inspiration to folks like ourselves who, have ancestry that takes us back to different parts of Asia. But we're all truly American here, trying to make our own mark in the world and, move our communities forward. But you are really doing that and are a beacon of hope for the next generations because of what you are doing and serving at such a high level. I mean that with all my heart. But I'll just be very brief. I had the honor of serving my hometown. It's a small suburban community in the southeast part of Los Angeles County, where Asian Americans are a very significant population in Los Angeles County. But to be able to serve my hometown community was a privilege, and it humbled me. And so I have a great deal of respect for the work that Mayor Ron is doing for such a large a metropolitan city like San Antonio, being one of the top 10 most populous cities in the nation. So I also wanted to say that in my retirement from public office, now having termed out, I really want to dedicate myself to supporting good groups like this one in their efforts to shine a light on folks like Mayor Ron and Mayor Pro Tem Melissa here and folks like myself who have served. But I think what's most important for me going forward is to help connect elected officials and former elected officials so that together we can help provide support to the next generation of those who aspire to serve in public office at whatever level, whether it be local, state, or the federal level. I think anyone who has a calling to serve is deserving of that support from the people who have been there before, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And so I'm really looking to the leadership of folks like Mayor Ron and others, who are really serving at the highest level. We're proud in California to now have our first appointed Filipino American Attorney General of California, the Honorable Rob Bonta. And I really see Mayor Ron and Attorney General Bonta as really that leading vanguard, if you will, in America, to shine a light on all the talent that's there in our Asian American community to serve for our nation as well as our hometowns. So again, thank you for having me a part of this very distinguished gathering. So thank you.
And former Ambassador Demopius, do you want to share some words?
Yes, thank you, Myra. Thank you, Myra. Yes, yes. It's quite an honor indeed to be speaking with the mayor of San Antonio, the Honorable Ron Nirenberg, as well as the former mayor of Cerritos in Southern California, Mark Pulido, and the rest, and as well as Mayor Pro Tempore, did I say it right, Melissa? And Nicolette, as well as Roy. Yes, this is indeed a rare privilege to be speaking with all of you. And again, I'd like to express how happy I am to see Mayor Ron being a person in whom we have the heritage, not only of the Filipino spirit, but also of other Asians like Malaysia and India. When we look back at history, we see that these people have exemplified like what the Americans did way back in 1700s. Like the Americans did, exuding the spirit by which people wanted to reach out for their liberty and freedom and to maintain such privilege of being free. So that I am proud to see people of Asian American heritage to be active in this level of government. And I look forward that in the near future, more and more of you, more and more of the young people of your generations will come up and be the shining light in America. The American dream is not only limited to those in this land, in America, but it is also shared by other people. The American dream is also a Filipino dream. It is also an Indian dream. It is also a Malaysian dream. It is a dream of most people. That's why a lot of people come to the United States to partake of such privilege, to partake of such rare, I would say rare, because in history, we see that here on this land, freedom and liberty prevails. Yes, in Jesus' name. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Yes.
Thank you. And Yatish, do you want to share some words?
Yeah, Myra, thank you for having me here. Mayor Nirenberg, it's an honor to be part of the city. It's about 13 years since we have moved down here with my family, settled here, and numerous occasions you have been with us in several events, and you know how much Indian community loves you. So we are here to support you with all your initiatives, and you've been a strong throughout this 2020 crisis which we went through, the recent storm which we had, and it was amazing to see you on the ground helping out every person who is needed, the needy people in San Antonio. So it's an honor to be part of this group, and also under your leadership, we'll see new I guess you can say we'll be touching new heights with San Antonio all over in the nation. So thank you, and we look forward to, and we are here to support you. The Indian community is here to support you in whatever form or fashion.
Thank you, Yatish, and likewise.
Yeah.
And Mayor Pro Tem Melissa?
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. Mayor Nirenberg, I've heard so much about you and I briefly got to meet you during the election. Excited that you are at the helm in a really big city in Texas. My city is so small, but it's very mighty. Oops, sorry, that's my alarm. But wanted to make sure I was here to greet you and show thanks, because it takes a lot for Filipinos and APIs to rise to the occasion to serve the community. I have a community that's over 36% API, and many of which are South Asian. We have literally Little India in my city. And my brother, former Mayor Mark Pulido, has guided me through navigating the political system locally. And to His Excellency, who was Rodolfo, when you mentioned that that our community needs to embrace and rise, it's so important. You know, we need these leaders to keep reminding us that we need to give back. And for those of you that are here in the Zoom, this is a very a small moment, but momentous, because I'll remember this, that I'm speaking to my brothers and sisters in another state who are doing the same thing that I'm doing. I'm actually retiring as the state chair for the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus for the California Democratic Party. I think the first Pinay and woman in a long time to serve after 42 years. So it's great that we're building this political power in states that are looking for that leadership. So I salute you for starting this this club, especially in Texas, where we need to make sure that we keep turning it blue.
Thank you, Melissa.
Great to see you, Melissa.
It really does feel like a historical moment. When we go about and do our busy, get hectic and do our own thing, it's really hard to remember sometimes the work that we do and what it ends up being. And what happens is that, we get so caught up in our mission, but later on down the line, it becomes part of our history. And Melissa is also the chair of the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus of the California Democratic Party. And so even though we're in different states, we're very much, there's a lot of reasons why we're all connected in some way. And that we should all recognize each other, because if you consider what history really is an overview, not just in time, but the larger picture of everything. Because if we only looked at, for example, the Japanese American internment camp in isolation of anything, we don't know the significance of that. If we look at the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 in isolation of all the other historical milestones in history, Asian American history, we won't know the significance of that. And that's why I thought it would be so great to have everyone here and to share their words with everyone, because it's when we sort of get the bird's eye view and just take time and meditate on the significance of anything, that we see the significance of it on the historical level. When I was a child in Beijing, I didn't know that I would be the first Filipino child there. And so there's a lot of things that we could look in retrospect to tell us, how significant it is. And I just want to say that to the audience, for anyone listening and wondering, should they be doing what they're called to do? Should, whatever idea they have that they were inspired by to serve the Asian American community and the greater community in their own city, if you feel that and that's you, and you're consistent with that dream and that vision and that calling, step up. There is now a developing path that you can follow. And you're looking at it. All the people gathered today, you're looking at that path, and that path can be your own. And so I just want to put that message of encouragement out there, because the reason why we're all here today is because we all listen to it. The people behind Asian American Democrats of South Texas, we listened to that calling. My father, before serving and taking that foreign service exam, where only 15 out of 300 people passed. That's the written part. And then there's a protocol and, other mental health screening and all of that to go through after you pass that foreign exam. It's challenging and it's rigorous, but do it, because there's a reason why you have the calling, and maybe you really were meant to take that call. At this time, I just want to ask everyone, and I'll start with Mark. Mark, what was it that led you to become a public servant and be a servant in on the level of government and as council member and mayor?
Thank you, Myra. I'd have to start with my parents. My parents, and the immigrant story that they had to tell, and being raised by them with their work ethic and always encouraging us to give back to our community. I think that's one of the reasons why, after I left home to go to college, that I felt a desire to come back home and to give back for my blessings, whether it's the education that I received, or just a wonderful opportunity to be raised in such a multicultural community that I wanted to kind of make us less invisible, and because I think as a child growing up in the 70s and 80s, we were very invisible, and no one really knew quite what I was, and it didn't help that being born here, I didn't speak the language. I knew the food, but it just added to the ambiguity about what a Filipino was back then. Now fast forward 40, 50 years, it is now becoming more evident, with the Ron Nirenbergs, the like I said, Rob Bontas, the Bruno Marses, and all these we're stepping out of the shadows and into the main light. And whether that's for good or bad, with the successes, or unfortunately in this climate of hate and violence, it's important that we have leaders to give a voice for our community. And so I think that's what motivated me, and why I'm so committed to supporting people like all the folks here on this Zoom who are committed to supporting people like Mayor Ron and the next generation of leaders. Thank you.
And Mayor Ron, how does it feel to be the only Asian American mayor in a top 10 city at this moment?
Well, and thank you, Myra, and thank you all. It's such an honor to be here with you, Mayor Pro Tem Melissa, and Ambassador Yatish, Mark, our very esteemed mayor in California. It's an honor to be here with you, but the recognition that I'm the only Asian American mayor of a top 10 city, in fact, I believe it's a top 50 city now, is just further evidence that our communities that are unfortunately underrepresented in positions of leadership have that much more work to do to be recognized as essential parts of the American fabric. Everyone who is here is a pioneer, in other words, because there's just there's a lot of work to do in terms of restoring equity in our cities and in our nation, and a lot of that has to do with communities of color supporting one another to achieve positions of leadership. And on one hand, it's an honor to be here and to do this work and to represent AAPI communities at the same time. but also it's a recognition that that is a big responsibility to do it in the right way, to make sure that we can reach back and ensure that there are others that follow, that we pave, that we do our part to pave a path. You know, I view the work that I do as a representative of AAPI communities to have taken a baton from others like Mark, like Ambassador, and I've got to hold on to it tight and do my part to run as fast as I can to be ready to hand it off to the next generation. So, you know, there's a lot of, in other words, there's a lot of mixed emotions, all good, but all, I think, recognizing that I'm part of a fabric that needs to continue to grow.
Thank you, Mayor. Former Ambassador Demopius, do you have some words about what inspired you to become a public servant and to serve your country? I've heard the story a lot, but I just want to welcome you to share it with the San Antonio community.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Myra. Well, first of all, let me backtrack, and may I express regret that I have not mentioned Yatish a while ago in my earlier talk, but I do recognize you, that you are in this discussion, and I'm happy to be sharing views with our colleagues, all of you, at this time. Now the question is, how did I get into this, into public service? Well, when I was young, service and search for truth has always been urging me, has always been propelling me in my schooling and in everything that I did, even socially. That's why it led me to be the president of the Filipino Cultural Youth Club in Los Angeles and Southern California for many, many terms. And when I was in college, again, you know, the Filipino students at UCLA, and we organized, and I was the president. And then at USC, where I took my graduate studies in international relations, and well, service to my people, service and search for truth. This has been the two principles that I followed, and I think which many of you now are involved in. And I'm proud of all of you, if may I say that. Now, how did I get into the Foreign Service? After graduating Foreign Service career, well, after graduating from USC and UCLA, I went home because I wanted a reverse of the brain drain. Instead of Asians going out to the West, I studied in the West and then came back to Asia. Why? To share and to help elevate the conditions to overcome the poverty in my country. Now, but when I was teaching as professor of political science in Manila, in several colleges, universities, as well as the Defense College of the Philippines, now I discovered that not all of the political leaders, some, yes, were sincere, and so inspired to overcome poverty, but some stood on the way. So I said, well, I'll see if I can do something more than just teach in the universities. But when martial law was declared by the president, and he said, nobody in the country can leave without the permission of the government, I said, well, the only way to leave is to join the Foreign Service. But to join the Foreign Service, there were two ways. either to be a political appointee or to pass the examination. I did not want to be a political appointee. So I took the examination, and lo and behold, God gave the blessings. And it was just like going through an eye of the needle. And yes, although I planned to just stay in the Foreign Service for a few years and then leave, I stayed there and became my career. And it became my career. Yes. So service, even at that position. But that position gave me the opportunity to meet people at the high level, to the level of the president. And abroad, I dealt with presidents and kings, prime ministers. Now, this gave me an insight of how things work within the government. But what is most important is that in each of those who serve for the public good must have in their heart, which I see in each of you, I hope, well, which I see it in all of you, that you must have in your heart, even just basically these two things: service to your people and search for truth. And that's why I am proud to meet, and it's an honor and a privilege to be speaking with Mayor Ron, Mayor Mark, Yatish, Melisha, Nicolette, Roy, and my daughter Myra. And go on, take the baton and run the Asian community in America, elevate it until we are known. In blessings. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you
Papa.
so much.
And I just want to give others a chance to also express, what was it that led you to take that leadership role? Chairman Yatish, I also want to hear from you about what inspired you to take up that role for the Indian Association of San Antonio.
Thank you, Myra. Being associated with the Indian Association was back in 2012 when I started serving as an executive committee member and then moved on. Was the president of the Indian Association in 2016. That's when I started interacting with Mayor Nirenberg and everybody. He was a councilman back then. And in 2017, he became the mayor of San Antonio. So that then the interaction grew, being in the same community, meeting him on different occasions. So as you see, the main connection was when we came down, immigrated here to the US, me and my wife, with our little son, 1 year old, that's the family we had here. So serving the community was how we connected, and that's how we formed our little family here in San Antonio. When we say little family, it's close to about 3,000 Indian families here. Then now we are growing close to about 8,000 Indian families. So Asian Americans have been the fastest growing in the 2000s. Now in the past 20 years, it's about 81% growth, okay? And Texas is the second largest, fastest growing, just behind California in the past 20 years. So Asian Americans population is the fastest growing. If we are not connected, then will fall apart pretty quickly. So the faster we grow, if not connected, will fall apart. That led me to be connected to the community and serve the community, keeping our roots, our culture, our heritage together, showing that to our next generation. So that's the main reason to be serving the community. Thank you, Myra.
Thank you, Yatish. And certainly what's happening in India right now is very important for us to follow, especially as a group that is connected to the president and, a group that has supported the president.
Yes.
And, with a large Indian community in San Antonio, we're here to support you. And we just want to encourage everyone else in our audience to also keep an eye out on what's happening in India and to just keep an eye out on ways to support.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Melissa, do you want to share any brief words before I go on to let Mayor Ron say any final words and before we ask him just a couple questions?
Oh, sure. I believe the original question was why do you serve? Why are you in this role? Is that correct? to that effect. So I honestly was not thinking of running until Mark said, sister, you have to run. You know, if anyone is going to represent your city and your community, it has to be you. Someone who has a child of the community and the school system, like no other person should represent your community but you. So that's why I did it. I ran when I just barely turned 30 years old, and no one wanted to support me because I was so young at that time, but yet had over a decade of government experience. So, you know, and then come 8 years later, or actually not that long, 5 years later, I'm in office because I had to serve a little more time in the eyes of many people. And it's been an honor since, and I'll continue to serve until the people say otherwise. And to be a Filipina that I'm probably one of the longest serving Filipina Democrats at the municipal level ever in LA County, which is really sad because we're such a large county, and to have that really small representation of Filipino Americans, we have to do better. And until like we as ourselves in this position of power don't have to be the first of anything, of any of our city, of any of our county, then we know that we still need to continue for that representation.
Thank you, Melissa. And next, we just have a couple questions, and we'll start off with Nicolette, who has a question for Mayor Ron.
Thanks, Myra. So again, thank you, Mayor Ron, for being here with us this evening. I just have one quick question, but everybody feel free to also interject or add some additional comments, because really this is a great opportunity, a historic opportunity really for us to talk with Mayor Ron. So Mayor Ron, if you could just answer my one question, what is your biggest motivator in serving the people of San Antonio?
You know, that's a really difficult question because, and I'm sure Melissa and Mark can both relate. Serving as mayor probably has to be one of the most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding and fun jobs around. But what motivates me on a daily basis is why I got into this in the first place, and it was never a life goal of mine to serve an elected office, or certainly to become mayor, but you find yourself being pulled ever deeper into public service, and what motivates me is what I can do to improve my community for my child and his peers, the next generation. That's ultimately why I turned what was sort of a concerned citizen involvement in the community building process that Mayor Castro had launched, called SA 2020, into what is now my full-time plus job. Is that I realized in that process of community building and doing what I could as a concerned citizen, that I just kept getting more energy from it, and I just loved the work that I was doing, so much so that I came home one day and talked to Erica, my wife, and said, this is where I'm the more I do, the more energized I am. This is clearly where my passion is. So let's go all in. And chose to serve on the city council, or to run for city council. I was blessed to have been given that trust to serve as a city council member. And then I just kept deepening my involvement. And that's what gets me up every day, is I still have the same mission of doing whatever I can in the part of the race that I'm running, the baton that I'm carrying, to make sure that when I hand it off to the next person, that it's in a better shape than when I started.
Thank you, Mayor Ron. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Roy.
My
Thank you,
question is
Nicolette.
going to be, like, what was the moment you were inspired to serve in such a public space? But I felt like you answered it. So I'm just gonna ask you, how do you balance, I guess, your personal life and then being in a public space? Just because I know there might be a blurring of such a thing.
Yeah, and I think that's one. So balancing personal and public life. I think when you enter into a position as an elected official, knowing that you, in your career, your professional life, represent and have to do work on behalf of the public that you serve, I think you sacrifice your your personal life. I really do. Obviously, I hope that people we elect to office choose to live honorably, that, you know, they uphold themselves to a standard by which we wouldn't expect anything less of anyone we're with. And so I knew getting into this that it would be a life in a fishbowl, and that, you know, the most important thing is to not just lead with vision and intention and fairness and you know, a sense of equity and justice, but also to lead with character. And that it's important, character is as important, as we've seen in this country, character is as important as the policy positions that you hold. And character is what you are doing when no one is watching. And integrity is what you are led by when there's no rules. And so that's very important to me. And so, you know, in terms of balancing public and private life, I know I've asked a lot from my family. We try to have, you know, I try to carve out time for family and for personal and for mental wellness and all of that. But in terms of balancing who is Ron in the public and who is Ron in private, it's really the same person.
And I just have to thank you because you're talking about, you know, having this sense of values of just following, you know, your morals and stuff. I have seen you in these spaces for visuals. I have seen you like in Filipino spaces as well when the Institute of Texan Culture was unveiling their Filipino exhibit. And I've just seen you in just these random places. So, you know, like I have seen you and it wasn't like announced that, you know, you were going to be at like this rally or whatever. So I do want to thank you for being visible and, you know, just
thank you, Roy.
With us.
Thank you, Roy. And no, I appreciate that. And since you said vigil, obviously there's a lot going on for Asian Americans in this community and marginalized Americans all over our country and across the world, frankly, that we always have to make sure we stand up for and champion. And those are in good times and in tough times. And I think we've had some good times here in the last couple of days. I do want to make sure that we all properly recognize and celebrate our own AAPI representative who is now being sent to the Pentagon because of President Biden. And that is our new Undersecretary of the Air Force, Gina Ortiz-Jones. So congratulations, Gina. I don't know if you're watching, but we're all very proud of you and your appointment to a very important position, not just for San Antonio, but obviously the rest of the country and the world.
Thank you, Mayor Ron, for and we do congratulate Gina Ortiz-Jones. It is a big step and it's a big honor to have that nomination. And we certainly hope the best for the final vote for that. Mayor Ron, I know as a mayor, it's really, really hard to sometimes, represent all of the community. And certainly anyone who's been in leadership roles knows they ultimately always come to a point where they're not going to be able to please everyone, right? Anyone who's been in any leadership, whether it's a high school president or anything, president of a sorority or for fraternity, which I've never been, but I'm just trying to the range of leadership roles, right? And then especially as mayor of a city, there's always going to be some issues that maybe not everyone agrees with. And, I just want to ask, because this is going to be almost like a twofold question. As an Asian American mayor, what will be the most important priorities that you see for serving the Asian American community, this year and moving forward? And then especially as, the Asian American community is also working in solidarity with other
Mhm.
communities of color. And as you may know, there is a current proposition on the ballot that is very controversial right now. And how I know I'm giving you the freedom to address it in the way you want, but certainly some of us, a lot of us in the Asian American community are concerned about how it's affecting our brothers and sisters in the other ethnic communities. So, for me, serving the Asian American community also means serving the other communities outside the Asian American community that we're tightly bonded with and that we're tightly in solidarity with. And I just want to leave it up to you to express what maybe even considering part of Roy's question in this, the separation of public and personal.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said, Myra. And I want to make a couple comments to begin, which is that I am absolutely in agreement that it is a responsibility of everyone, not just the majority, but certainly our minority communities, marginalized communities, that we're all in this together. There, but for the grace of God go I. We have to make sure that every community stands for one another, because every community could be next in terms of being targeted or marginalized if we don't. So yes, I don't think we all share a common mission in that pursuit. The other thing I want to mention is that part of that is understanding that we have universal human values in our community and across the world, for which we should all agree. I happen to believe they can be distilled down to the golden rule, which is one of the reasons why the first paper document that I signed by design as a sworn-in mayor of San Antonio was our city's charter for compassion. I asked the city council to adopt a charter for compassion that recognizes there are some fundamental values for which we need to lead our city, create initiatives, balance our budgets, but it should be on a basis that unites all of humanity. So specifically, what does that mean? In order to advance our AAPI communities, which have been underrepresented in civic leadership and business leadership and many other areas, we have to account for inequity. We do this for a lot of our marginalized communities, overcoming racial bias, for instance, by investing in communities that have not been that have been left behind for generations. That's one of the principles on which we stand on the Charter for Compassion, is restoring equity. And sometimes that means representation. And so we're working to make sure that AAPI members of our community are represented in pools of applicants when we put out boards and commission applications. We're making sure that Asian American community members are considered for high-level appointments in agencies, things like that. And it also means that resources need to be shared in an equitable manner. So we know there are Asian American owned businesses in our community that have been underrepresented in public contracts. So we have a disparity study to understand what is the gap of equity, and we have a mission and a purpose to overcome that gap with the public contracting that we're doing at the city or through the San Antonio Water System or CPS Energy or the county or any of the public agencies. And it also means justice. So specifically with regard to racial bias within our criminal justice system, we know that it is an issue. It has been an issue for generations. It's an issue that is quite often and by proportion significantly centered on our African American community, but it is all communities of color. With respect to the proposition that's on the ballot in the local election, that is, so first of all, I'm not involved in the campaigns for that proposition. What I will tell you is that that Proposition B is proposed to strip away collective bargaining rights from the San Antonio Police Officers Association. Whether that proposition passes or it fails. So right now we're ongoing with a collective bargaining negotiation for the next police officer's contract. That contains the healthcare benefits, the disciplinary processes, and the wages. And we have to negotiate that contract. So that's what we're attempting to do right now. If Proposition B passes, that collective bargaining agreement goes away, and we have to operate under the new rules that are established by the voters. But the important part I want everyone to recognize is that whether Proposition B passes or fails, we need to make sure that we have elected representatives who are going to stand up for our communities of color, our Asian American communities, our Black American communities, our Hispanic American communities, everyone, to demand the reforms that we're trying to negotiate currently into the contract, making sure that our chief of police has the ultimate hiring and firing authority for the Police Officers Association, so that if there are officers who are found of misconduct and are removed from the force, they can't be brought back by arbitration panels that are blind to the disciplinary records that an officer may have. So we have to achieve those reforms, whether it's at the table of collective bargaining or it's at through some other rules that are established by the voters in Proposition B. Either way, we have jobs to do as elected officials that have to stand for those reforms. And that is true whether Proposition B passes or fails. We still have to demand those reforms from our public officials. And I'm proud to stand on the side of those reform efforts. I'm going to continue to do that. And again, anything short of those reforms, I will not accept as mayor of San Antonio.
Thank you, Mayor. And as Asian American Democrats of South Texas, we just want to express that we are in support of Prop B, and I appreciate that you mentioned that either way, there's a need to fight for reform, and I'm glad we're on the same page at least about that. And certainly, we just also want our audience to remember that if that Proposition B is about removing Chapter 174, and if it is successfully removed, it removes the exact chapter that has led to the San Antonio Police Department having the highest reinstatement rate in the nation currently. And that was confirmed by a study that the Washington Post did, and has been confirmed with even local studies, with I think a study called the Broken Blue. And so I believe most of San Antonio stand on the side of justice and racial equity, and just holding whoever is guilty accountable. But also Proposition B makes that process simply more democratic. So yes, it will require a contract, creating contracts under 143 if 174 is removed, and we can find the model in Dallas, which has 147, and the premises and the support for the healthcare and other benefits for police law enforcement officers remain under 143, and I believe it's just a process of really having clear communication. So because I think a lot of it is we're actually on the same page in the end. It's just the process of which route do you take. And as a chapter, we are in favor of Prop B, because after speaking to the legal experts and people who have studied the law, it seems that a lot of the protection for law enforcement officers can remain if 174 is removed. And it's just a process of having to do more work in the light of change. But for us, our guiding principle, I'm sure similar with you, Mayor Ron, is that it's the families who are asking for support for change, right? That we ultimately see as the ultimate experts, and it's the families that we see as the ones that we should hear most, because there is a level of trauma that comes with being part of a community, including an Asian American community that is under, experiencing racism, from violence to graffiti that we saw here locally at Noodle Tree here in San Antonio. And I'm just glad, Mayor Ron, that you're the type of person, and after spending time with us, it confirmed to me that you're the type of person with an open heart that is at least open to having further communication with different communities. And I myself find myself mixed, coming from a mixed cultures, because I grew up in all the countries my father was assigned to. So from born in Philippines and then left when I was 3, China for about half a year, Malaysia for a total of about almost 9 years. And then, South Korea, Germany, Romania. And then, I was older by then, but Bahrain, in Mexico City. And so I really, I just want to say thank you to everyone who spent their time with us today. And, I don't want to take too much of anyone else's time. And I thank you to the audience that is listening, that I hope that this has been informational and educational for you. And I just, from my heart, we just want to say thank you. And Mayor Ron, do you have any more words before we close?
Sure, yeah, and thank you, Myra, Ambassador, Mayor Pulido, Yatish, Mayor Pro Tem Ramoso, Roy, Nicolette. It's great to spend time with you tonight. I am deeply honored to be here as mayor of a city that so warmly embraces the AAPI community. I also will say it's also a great pleasure to be here as mayor of a city that embraces interfaith intersections as well. You mentioned as we started that I'm also of Jewish descent. My father and his side of the family were Jewish. My mother and her side of the family were Roman Catholic. And so my own family is a great intersection of cultures and faiths and traditions. And I have, in my life, gotten to spend time in many cities, all of which I've come to love, but I've never felt so much at home as I do here in the city of San Antonio, which itself we call a confluence of cultures. And so I want to thank you for the time to highlight this part of our collective heritage, and know that I will be fighting every single day for all of us here on the line, but also throughout the community, because it is a mosaic, it's a tapestry of people that I think is a treasure in the world. Sorry to my California friends that you're not with us. We look forward to having you very soon in our city, where you will certainly be welcome. And let me not leave though without talking about the obvious, which is it has been about a year since we passed a resolution denouncing the hate that was beginning to surface again in our communities as a result of the pandemic. It hasn't subsided. It continues to be a problem. It has been a problem prior to the pandemic all throughout our country. It has been the pandemic that has helped us as a nation recognize some of those underlying conditions of our communities, whether it's poverty or it's health disparities, or in this case, it's racial bias, which we've seen in many different ways over the last year. I am of the strong belief that as we come out of this pandemic, which we're going to do, we're doing quite well. We need to stay on track. But as we come out of the pandemic and we continue to dedicate ourselves to fixing the broken foundations of our cities and our country, that part of that will include the underlying racial biases that have been plaguing communities for a long time. And if this is one more step in recognizing and highlighting the work that we have to do, that I'm grateful for the time and the effort to do so. I am a firm believer that the sun also rises, as we have been saying for the last year. We're going to get through this. And if you're in San Antonio or really any part of the country that shares the discussions that we've been having today, you have great cause to be optimistic. because the future is upon us, and it is very bright indeed, based on the conversations that we've been having here and that are happening all across the country. So I'm very blessed to join you tonight and to have your time, and look forward to the upcoming days and weeks and months as we get through this pandemic together.
Thank you, Mayor Ron.